Good evening from Boston College. I'm Sunan Bhattacharya, Associate Vice Provost for Design and Innovation Strategies. I welcome you to the show at 6, BC and the Common Good. The show at 6 features friends and members of the BC community discussing a range of issues affecting our world today, all revolving around the theme of the common good. Topics include how the BC community is responding to the effects of COVID-19, to the enduring challenges of the marginalized, to our own resiliency and solidarity, and to the upbuilding of human dignity throughout the world. The show is based on the central insight of the common good. That is, that the resources that humanity has and needs must be shared equitably. For instance, today each of us is called to promote the common good by social distancing, by wearing masks, by washing our hands. These practices, like other forms of solidarity, are not just for our own good, but for the common good. It gives me great pleasure to welcome my co-host, Alejandra Sanchez, and our guests this evening. Alejandra Sanchez is an undergraduate student of computer science, class of 2021. She's passionate about the application of design, technology, and art coupled with computer science. Alejandra is the founder and co-president of Design Thinking and Innovation Student Club, one of the first at BC. Currently, she is working as an undergraduate research assistant at MIT in an interdisciplinary project that has to do with computational analysis of prehistoric artifacts. Welcome, Alejandra.
Thank you, Sunan, for the lovely introduction. I'm really excited to be co-hosting this segment with you and our three esteemed guests this evening. Our first guest, Professor Thomas Childs, is the Vice Provost for Research and Academic Planning and the Salvatore and Michael DeLuca Endowed Chair in Biology at Boston College. He received his BS in microbiology and cell science from the University of Florida and his PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology from the University of Florida College of Medicine. He joined BC in 1992 as an assistant professor and served as chair of the biology department from 2006 to 2015. Since 2013, Professor Childs has been part of BC's leadership, spearheading strategic initiatives such as the development of the Schiller Institute for Integrated Science and Society.
Our second guest is Mary Nardone, my colleague. As Associate Vice President for Capital Projects Management at Boston College, Mary is responsible for the planning, design, and construction of new construction and large-scale renovations on campus. She leads teams of architects, engineers, planners, and project managers in the planning and development of the campus. Mary served as the project director for Boston College's Campus Master Plan. Mary is a registered professional mechanical engineer with a bachelor's of architectural engineering from Penn State University, a master's in finance from Boston College, and a PhD in higher education administration from Boston College as well. She also serves as part-time faculty in Boston College's Graduate School of Management. Mary has worked at Boston College for 27 years. Prior to joining Boston College, she held positions of engineering and engineering management in the contracting and consulting of engineering fields.
And last but certainly not least, I'd like to welcome Professor Laura J. Steinberg. Professor Steinberg is an inaugural Seidner Family Executive Director of the Schiller Institute for Integrated Science and Society, and a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences. An internationally respected civil and environmental engineering scholar whose research is focused on infrastructure and sustainability, environmental modeling, and technological innovation, Dr. Steinberg formerly served as the Dean of Syracuse University College of Engineering and Computer Science, Executive Director of Syracuse University Infrastructure Institute, and Interim Executive Director of New York State's Center of Excellence for Environmental and Energy Systems. Dr. Steinberg holds a BSc in Civil and Urban Engineering from the University of Pennsylvania, and an MS and PhD in Environmental Engineering from Duke University. Prior to joining the Academy, Dr. Steinberg worked as a consulting engineer for a variety of engineering and urban planning firms. Welcome.
And now, on to the show. Great to have everyone here at this evening's show at 6. Once again, a very warm welcome. I'm sure our audience is looking forward to learning about BC's Schiller Institute for Integrated Science and Society and how this strategic effort intends to foster integration, design, and innovation. By the way, those of us who may have had the opportunity of driving by the Boston College campus in the recent weeks, you may have noticed the sudden presence and appearance of a monumental 5-story structure in place of what used to be Cushing Hall exactly a year ago. This is indeed very, very fast progress. However, before we go any further, it would be great to hear of the history, how the Schiller Institute concept came about and grew from a germ of an idea into a significant driving strategy at BC. Professor Childs, you have played a key role in the strategic planning for BC that includes the Schiller Institute initiative. Can you take us through a chronological journey on the evolution of the Institute and how its goals will ultimately help catalyze a culture of design-driven research and innovation benefiting the common good?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. I want to thank everyone for zooming in this evening. If you're in New England, you know, we're in the midst of a tropical storm here, so it might get a little bit loud with the wind blowing outside my door, but it looks like the sun's poked through a little bit between the clouds. It's good to see all of my colleagues, Mary and Laura and Alessandra. It's good to see you again, one of our superstars in the undergraduate student body. So, you know, I'll take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit of the history. The real seed of this idea of integrating the sciences came about around 07, maybe even 08, when a group of faculty, including myself from across the natural sciences, computer science, math, geology at the time, began to think about integrating the sciences more closely together. This idea of finding ways to breaking down the silos that really kind of kept our respective disciplines apart. And you know, that came about really due to the changing nature of science, how science was actually carried out, how science was taught in the classroom. And what I mean by that is science today, and back then it was emerging, as a very collaborative interdisciplinary process. If you just look at publications from this university, for example, about 15 years ago, you might find 2 or 3 authors on the paper. Today, you'll find it's common to find 10, 11, 15 authors, and authors from not just across the university, but across from other universities around the country. So that was the real seed, and it you know, we worked on it a little bit, and it developed somewhat. And in, I believe, 2013, I was asked to step in and become Vice Provost for Research and Academic Planning. And one of the key charges that was put to me was to develop a strategic plan for the sciences, but to do it in the larger context of the university. So there was a twist now. What we originally had thought of in 08 was we were focusing mostly on the natural sciences, math and computer science, for example. But now we were tasked with taking that idea and expanding it out and bringing in the entire university. And that, I think, was a real key moment and insight. So I was tasked to do that, and to fast forward quickly, what I did was I began working with our institutional research planning and assessment group, and we began an internal assessment looking at our strengths as well as our weaknesses in the areas of research and scholarship, as well as teaching across the university. This was a several-year-long process that involved numerous faculty committees, the Executive Vice Provost Office, the Provost, the President, and eventually the trustees. When that internal process was completed, I then charged an external independent firm to come in and do the exact same thing. And when that external assessment was completed, we compared notes, and, you know, not to my surprise, what we found internally and what they found externally aligned perfectly well. And we discovered numerous strengths. That we had outstanding students, number one, that really fueled the intellectual environment, if you will, and helped fuel some of our research. We had we really were positioning where we were recruiting the top faculty in the country. We had nationally and internationally recognized doctoral programs and research programs, as evidenced by awards from the National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation, et cetera. We had a rich body of unique intellectual property and a track record of patents. And of course, we had top undergraduate and doctoral programs. And from this, we discovered that three broad areas kind of distilled out, that we had strengths in the areas broadly of health, environment, and energy. And importantly, these areas aligned with future trends and future funding priorities at the federal level as well as the international level. But we also recognized things we needed to improve. And that was an important element also. We recognized that we needed more of an applied science approach, if you will, an implementation science approach on this campus. And we needed that for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, that the discoveries we were making in the laboratories, the discoveries we were making across campus, we needed a better way, a more efficient and catalytic way, if you will, to translate those into the field, into the world, so that, you know, our results would matter, and to do so in real time. And I think we'll get back to how, you know, how we approach the applied science need on this campus in a moment. We also recognize, though, as I've said this to many people, the nature of our students in part was changing. We were moving from Gen X to Gen Y, and we were having students arriving on our campus as freshmen with very clear ideas about how they were going to impact the world. And, you know, it was our responsibility to show them how to take that idea and move it forward into a process or a product or what have you, that they could actually impact the world. And so those were the big key areas we thought that we needed to improve upon. Around 2016, the university was also well into a university-wide strategic planning process. And that process, I was involved in that process, and we were beginning to think about how the university could expand its local and its global reach, how it could expand its impact in the world. And that aligned carefully with some of the things we were thinking about from stemming from our internal and external assessment. And then, at least for me, and I think a couple of others, when we started to put all this together, the university-wide strategic planning, our own internal assessment, et cetera, really a light bulb came on. And it was in front of us, I think, all along. And that is, you know, at this university, we ask our students to consider, what does the world need of you? And it dawned on some of us, maybe we should turn that question on to ourselves. What does the world need of Boston College? What does it need of our Jesuit Catholic University, our community of researchers, our community of scholars and educators, our faculty, our students, our humanists, our political scientists, our economists? And therein, for me, allowed some of us to bring the rest of the university into this area of integrated science and things like that. So with that in mind, it really, the planning really took off. We came up with the idea, or the mission, if you will, to align the research and scholarship of what we do on this campus more closely and broadly with the mission of the university. We also committed ourselves to the following, and that is, you know, we need to offer prospective students something completely unique, something transformative, and something they could not get anywhere else. And the Schiller Institute, with those two themes, if you will, really came together. Now, it wasn't the Schiller Institute at the time. At the time, we began to think about it as the Institute for Integrated Science and Society. So we had the integrated science early on from that nugget, if you will, in 2008. And then we had the and society now from the rest of this planning and whatnot. So the Institute began to take shape. The goals are many, but I'll just highlight a couple: to foster and support transdisciplinary research that advances the common good and focuses on identifying solutions to complex problems in the areas of health, energy, and environment. This is what I think the world is asking us to do, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to develop and deploy new tools and technologies to address these important societal problems. Importantly for our students, we're going to educate and train the next generation of science and technology leaders and innovators. And as you know, Sinan, and certainly Mary is going to tell us in a moment, we're going to foster a design culture, a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. We'll talk a little bit later in this show about the academic programs and some of the hiring we're going to do and things like that. But to fast forward closer to today, in 2017, the university announced the Schiller Institute for Integrated Science and Society. And this is named in the honor of Phil Schiller, class of '82. Actually, he was a biology major in my home department, and his wife, Kim Gassett Schiller. And, you know, I'd like to take a moment and read a quote from Phil Schiller, which really embodies the Schiller Institute, his vision, and I think our vision for it. Phil is quoted as saying the following: "The Institute's science programs will build on the talents of our great students and their desires to do things in a new way, with meaning and purpose, to advance the scientific process and multidisciplinary approach that Boston College is uniquely to accomplish. This is where the best work comes from, as diverse minds with different experiences try to understand a problem and solve things as a team. This is where big leaps forward happen." And then more recently in 2018, as we now know with Laura Steinberg, Mark and Mary Lou Seidner endowed the executive director of the Schiller Institute. And our inaugural director, as you just heard, is Laura Steinberg, and we're going to be hearing from Laura in just a moment. So that's the history in a nutshell, Sinan.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Professor Childs. So, on that note, as a student who strongly believes in the intersection of art, design, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and as someone who founded the campus student group DTAI, or Design Thinking and Innovation, which currently has 150 registered student members, I'm really excited to see this unfolding so quickly at BC. The mission and guiding philosophy of the upcoming Schiller Institute, as you mentioned, and the rapid progress on campus only makes me wish I could remain at BC beyond my graduation in 2021. And I can say the same for many of my peers who are active enthusiasts of introducing opportunities of design and innovation at BC. Professor Steinberg, as a brand new executive director of this exciting initiative, how do you foresee the Schiller Institute becoming the campus hub for integration, design, and innovation? And as a student, what can I expect to see by spring of 2021?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet everybody here in the BC community. It's been a wonderful couple of months that I've been here, and I'm really thrilled to be able to talk about the Schiller Institute with those of you that are on this Zoom call. And I'm thrilled with the colleagues that are on with me, and very much appreciated the work we've already been able to do together, and look forward to more of that. Let me talk a little bit about the hub aspect you mentioned. I think the hub is going to come from this idea of this wonderful new building that I think Mary's going to talk more about soon, that you've heard about. In my imagination, that's filled day and night, I imagine, with students and faculty who are working in shared research laboratories, folks that are prototyping designs in the makerspace in the building, people meeting to discuss collaborative project ideas, and areas in the building that are filled with people who are brainstorming about solutions to problems that face us in society. So I think there's a hub aspect that's generated by the fact that we have a physical presence on campus filled with the right kinds of spaces and the right kinds of access for people to be in day and night. I'm going to talk a little bit more now about integration, because you talked about it being a hub for integration. I think integration is a key theme for Schiller. And Schiller will be promoting integration in many different forms. We'll be integrating the academic disciplines and the research that we do in the building and in new curriculum development. We'll be creating opportunities for student researchers to work with faculty on research projects. So we'll be integrating the student researchers with faculty research. We'll be seeing that students are mixing in the building, in those maker spaces and in the classes that they take in the building. And we're further going to encourage and create opportunities for student experiences in the community engagement projects, which I think is going to be a very important aspect of what Schiller helps to promote on campus. On the teaching side, I think it's important to recognize that there's been an understanding for a while that science might possibly be best taught not as individual subjects, biology, chemistry, physics, math, but because the natural universe is really a very complex amalgam of these areas, that might be best to teach and think about these disciplines in a more connected way. And this was actually the integrated science education movement that started a couple of decades ago, actually. But the great thing is that the Schiller Institute is taking this pedagogical construct of integrated science and moving it a significant step further by emphasizing that the study of sciences is actually best done in the context of liberal arts and the intellectual foundations of professions like those that we have here in law and business, social work, nursing, and now engineering. So at the Institute, we're going to see integrated science as inherently melded, if you will, with these other areas. And it's this inclusive approach to learning and to context and to perspectives that I think is going to be the most fruitful context for research going forward. And with this in mind, everyone listening to this should know that this fall, the Schiller Institute will be convening interested faculty and students from around campus, from all the schools and all the departments, and asking you, how can Schiller best support you in your pedagogy and in your research, in particular in the interdisciplinary themes of environment, health, and energy. So I want to make it explicit here that the Institute is interested in engaging students and faculty in these conversations. So if you're a faculty member in the sciences, we want to hear from you. We want to see you at these convenings. If you're a faculty member or a student in art history and you're interested in how medical procedures were depicted in the 16th century, we have a place for you at the Schiller Institute. If you're in sociology and you're interested in environmental racism, we probably need to talk to each other. If you're a social entrepreneur and you're thinking about energy innovations and how you can get those out into the marketplace, we want to hear from you. So what we'll be doing in the Schiller Institute, once we have these convenings and we actually have started to work out our areas of emphasis, we'll be doing what's commonly known in the research community now as convergent science, convergence science, which is closely related to interdisciplinary science, but it's oriented more towards a blending of the disciplines in a very reciprocal and in equal way than we've typically seen in interdisciplinary work. So, so the idea is that this kind of reciprocity offers more opportunities ultimately for creative thought and breakthrough explorations. And it's interesting when you think about convergent science, this sort of new emerging way of thinking about science, it's absolutely a beautiful fit with the Schiller Institute's perspective on promoting integrated research and scholarship for the common good. Because convergent science is actually driven by the need to address what we call the so-called wicked problems. You know, conundrums like how are we going to ensure that there's potable water available for populations worldwide at the same time that we have climate change occurring and in fact accelerating? Or how do we ensure that we have a cyber safe society as our AI capabilities continue to expand? It's good and bad when AI capabilities expand, when you think about defending our cyberspace. So this sense of interdisciplinarity, convergent science, integrated science, and very importantly, that we connect the sciences with the humanities, the liberal arts, and the foundations of the foundational intellectual thoughts of the professions is really essential components of the Schiller Institute. And then the last thing I'll say on this is that we'll do these, we'll have our activities in the laboratory, we'll do our pedagogy, but then what we want to do is take our discoveries out into the world. We want to engage students and faculty in piloting these in appropriate venues, and then ultimately build partnerships with businesses, NGOs, government, and others to bring to scale the discoveries and the innovations that we're creating in the Institute, so that we are really creating positive change in society and are reaching our goal of being a force for the common good.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for the overview. Very informative and a lot to talk about for us as we move forward. Building a brand new facility whose planning and architectural design is not only based on addressing current functional needs, but also of incorporating future trends and expectations of our incoming Generation Z students, as Tom pointed out, is complex to say the least. Mary, as someone who has been leading the process of building an environment that would foster learning, designing, innovating through interdisciplinary collaboration, as Laura just pointed out, and also satisfying a variety of stakeholders, can you share your experiences with this project, Mary?
Yes, certainly. Good evening, everyone. As a first step, I'm going to share my screen. Sunan, you can just confirm you can see that.
Yep, we can see it clearly.
Okay, so I'll introduce the building perhaps, our other guest. You know, it's been said in architecture that form follows function. This building's an intriguing example of that. And as you can see from this rendering, given that the building's sited at the heart of the BC Historic Academic Campus, the exterior of the building very much wanted to be of the vernacular of the collegiate Gothic. So it has the stone facade, it has the pitched roofs, the multicolored clay tile, the vaulted arch at the front door, very much a Gothic building. But the goals for the building and for the Schiller Institute are all about addressing challenges in society. So the focus of the building needed to be outward. So you'll see a tremendous amount of glazing, glass that is, when it's compared to the traditional Gothic facade. Right here at this main entrance in the northwest corner here, you actually see an element that is a 4-story high, complete glass element, offering views into the building, inviting into the building, but also offering the opportunity within the building to be focusing on looking outward to the campus and to society. So as you enter the building, you're going to have this experience where you transition from the traditional historic shell into a high performance, state-of-the-art core building with a lot of transparency. So not only, as we see here, there's a lot of transparency on the exterior of the building with the windows. When you get to the interior, there's a tremendous amount of transparency, glass walls for the interior walls. So these yellow lines represent a tremendous amount of porous transparency throughout the whole building. So all activities going on in the building are really focusing outward. This is a computer rendering from just inside the building, just inside that main entrance. Here's that glass element. We're on the main circulating stair. When you first come in, we're looking back at the entrance. You can see the exterior stone has weaved its way into the building just to tie us to Middle Campus as we're inside the building. But you see all of the glass, as I said, looking back out to campus, but also these spaces here, these interior spaces have, you know, full glass walls. So there was an effort, a conscious effort made to put the maker type spaces, the Shea Center for Entrepreneurship, etc., prominently here stacked on this corner just as you enter the building on each level. You can experience what's going on as soon as you enter the building or as you're traveling up this circulating staircase. Another critical element to the design is the amount of space dedicated to collaboration. Often during a building design process, every square foot, every square inch needs to be dedicated to a very specific, justifiable, programmatic purpose. Since this building has the goals of collaboration and innovation, I think the university did a good job at staying committed to the physical space that is needed to accommodate that. It's not formally programmed, but is available. It's available to everyone in the building. It's available to those passing through the building in order to collaborate, ideate, innovate, and have chance encounters with each other. So this yellow area, this entire yellow zone that's ringing the floor on the first 3 levels is what we're calling our collaboration commons. Overall in the building, when you look at this non-specifically programmed space, you know, it tallies up to almost 10% of the building. So it's a conscious effort here. It's also 2 terraces. There's 1 terrace on the north side that will allow the activities and energy to spill out. And there's also a terrace along the west side of the building on the first floor. Also, I should mention in light blue here are classrooms. So there's classrooms, university registrar classrooms woven into the building on the first 3 levels. They are blended in with the maker type spaces, with the engineering spaces, so that this culture of innovation and problem sharing is really shared across the full academic community. There's an auditorium on the first floor. It has about 180 seats, and the total number of seats, classroom seats in the building is almost 600. So there is a lot of the general university in the building as well. Here's a rendering of that collaboration commons. It does serve as circulation. That's also informal gathering. But you can picture in some of these areas, there will be whiteboards and marker boards. So the work of ideation will take place throughout the whole building. Again, you see the full glass into the classroom. So all of the energy and all of the different spaces going on in the building are kind of going to build off of each other. The upper floors are the research lab areas. We have office and research space for 22 principal investigators. Again, with a tremendous amount of transparency throughout though, in particular in this east-west direction, trying to allow all of the light and all of the energy to cross through there. You have large glazing, glazed walls on these interior walls. The labs themselves, you see, are very open. There's right up clusters on each end of the lab, but then there's this large open lab in the middle with these glass walls surrounding it. It's modular, has reconfigurable lab casework, and so that will have multiple transdisciplinary teams working side by side in it. With that, I have one more, but I'll save that for later, so I'm going to stop sharing and allow us to talk to each other.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. Now I seriously wish I was a freshman just coming in so I could get to experience the building. But on that note, I have a follow-up question for everyone. With what I've heard so far, it's to my best understanding that this institute is meant to behave like a test kitchen hub that facilitates cross-disciplinary collaboration. That being said, what can students expect to learn from the institute, and how will it better the BC experience for us students?
I can take a stab at that. You know, it's a test kitchen has an awful lot of different meanings, but you know, the building, as Mary just indicated, is a very transparent building, and it's a very porous building. And so that the idea is that students and faculty can move seamlessly horizontally as well as vertically. We can see what's going on a given floor, north to south, east to west, as well as vertically through the stacking of the building. And we've done that because we want to foster an environment of collaboration, but an environment of creativity and innovation. And so we've built into the building maker spaces and prototype spaces to allow students to build things. You know, a freshman coming in that has an idea but isn't quite sure where to begin, well, they can come into the building. And I want to be clear about one thing. You don't have to be a science major, okay? You don't have to be an engineering major. You could be a student in philosophy, in economics, the Carroll School, the Cannell School. It doesn't matter. The building is going to be welcoming for everyone to come in and to kind of ideate their thoughts and their ideas, and then to prototype them. And as Mary said, we will have the Shea Center for Entrepreneurship in the building, which will allow students, again, independent of your major, to glean some managerial and some entrepreneurial skill sets. The academic programs are also built around that theme. We have at least 3 of our academic programs are going to be programs that are integrated, that integrate courses and majors across the university. So for example, you've heard a lot about human-centered engineering. So we're going to be launching the human-centered engineering program next fall 21. And that is a new program. It's a distinctive program, the first of its kind that we know of in the country, certainly. We will eventually be rolling out an integrated science program as well as a data science program. And again, what these academic programs have in common is they're going to bring students together to create and to test things out. Maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. The whole nature of design thinking is to get as many people together and to contribute as many ideas, no matter how crazy, as far-fetched they are, and to distill those down, those 100 or 200 ideas, down to 2 or 3 from all of these individuals, and then let's prototype those and come up with potential solutions. So the idea of a test kitchen, I think you'll find some of our academic programs have that somewhat as their foundation, but you will find in the building that a lot of the spaces that we are designing are going to allow students and faculty to test their ideas as well as their technologies. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's as best as I can do right now. I know Laura has some very clear ideas on that, so I'll turn it over to Laura.
Actually, on that note, Tom, I want to kind of ask you a little bit more. Yeah. Speaking of new programs, I understand this fall you launched, this past fall, the Global Public Health Program.
Correct.
As well. And you know, the explicit incorporation of experiential learning, which encompasses service and active learning, is a distinctive feature of BC's education.
Right.
Given where the world is going today towards, you know, can you or Laura talk a little bit more about how you hope to see these play out and how these types of projects will kind of fulfill and take things in the direction that for the greater good?
Sure. I mean, Laura, you want to, I'll let Laura take that. You're muted.
What I said, Tom, is that I think that's a good one for you to take.
Okay. So you're absolutely right. You know, at BC Sound, we have a real culture of service. We have a real emphasis on experiential opportunities and learning. We've designed at least the 2 key programs that we are rolling out. One you just mentioned, Global Public Health. That's currently a minor. Dr. Phil Landrigan is the director of that program. That is a minor. And the human-centered engineering program we will roll out in the next fall. We will, as all of you know, accept our first cohort of engineering students in the fall. Both of these programs have at their foundation taking the language that students learn in the classroom, the skill sets that they learn in our academic buildings as well as in the Schiller Institute, and taking those out into the real world and to get real world experiences and to understand what it means to translate your knowledge that you've gleaned on a campus and translate that into the world and to begin to try and make a difference and impact the world and affect change. So at the heart of many of these programs that we're rolling out and that are under the umbrella of the Schiller Institute is this notion of service, but service with impact and service that is sustainable. We want to develop outreaches where we have a presence in parts of the world that are sustainable and long-term. We don't necessarily want to do a one-off here and a one-off there. We want to get into regions where our global public health, our engineering, for example, our integrated science, for example, can really make an impact within those ecosystems.
Professor Steinberg, what goals, operational or philosophical, do you foresee fulfilling within the first years of the Institute's introduction? And where do you see the Institute in 5 to 10 years?
So, I mean, I think this first year is really a time of visioning the Institute's programs and research programs for academic programs and research programs for the future. And that's why I talked about convening faculty and students in the coming year. We know that we're gonna focus our activities in the areas of energy, environment, and health. The question is going to be, well, that said, how specifically, what do we want to get involved with? Where do we want to make the most impact in the world? What questions are of most import to the BC community? And once we decide that, how can the Schiller Institute, with the resources that are available to it, help to make that a reality on campus? So I think the first year is going to be a lot of exploration, but I think we're also going to be providing some programming immediately. So we're going to be involved with the Forum on Racial Justice that the law school is heading up that effort with a very strong group of advisors and a committee to work with him. We'll be doing a session sometime in the fall on environmental racism, which we think is a really good connection for the Schiller Institute's emphasis on common good, on environmental issues, and on the current concerns in the racial justice area. We're also planning potentially a course or two for the spring. That will be courses that will be integrated, if you will, across several different areas on campus. It's a little too early to talk more specifically, but we do have some ideas in mind, given some of the conversations I've already had. So these would be courses that wouldn't normally be taught by any one department because they're too broad in scope. But there's something that the Schiller Institute could facilitate and promote. I mean, I am aware that there are the complex problems classes, and I think those are spectacular. So maybe they'll be modeled a bit after those, but I think we have some more specific ideas going forward. So that's what we'll probably be doing in the next year or so. What we have to do is look forward to the opening of the building in 18 months, and a concept that was going to be full of people, as I said earlier. And so, what we see in 5 to 10 years is a building and a group of faculty and students that are working on important projects. Really, what we want to do is see the Institute as a leader nationally and even internationally in one or two of these emergent science areas, where we've got a place for ourselves in the realm of those institutes and research facilities around the world that are approaching really hard, those wicked problems we talked about, the conundrums. Where do we have to find where we fit in there, and then we're going to make a difference in those areas, and we're going to be known for those particular efforts that we're going to be doing. We don't know what that is going to be yet, though. We're going to go to the community, the BC community, and see what we can find.
Thank you, Laura. There's some great.
Sinan, as you know, Sinan, if I might interject, and I'm mindful of time because we want to get to the questions, but Sinan, you've played a key role in helping catalyze the design and innovation culture that's really swept across the campus in the last 18 minutes. Do you want to just take a minute and describe to the audience what your group and in collaboration with other schools at BC has been doing?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So Tom used the term catalyze, and that's because we already have a foundation of initiatives, philosophy, and activities that are going on, and we're building upon that. And design thinking, design-driven mindset in terms of solving problems, in terms of integrating, including the user upfront for unintended consequences, is something very much needed for society. So to do that, we've done several things. We've introduced a brand new course called Innovation Through Design Thinking, which is part of a 4-course scaffold that we'll be adding pretty soon through research and innovation. We've added a speaker series. We've added something like a hackathon. We call them design swarms.
Mm-hmm.
We've done many of those. In fact, there's one going on right now as I speak,
right,
in the ERA course from Lynch School. And we intend into introducing this into the engineering program so that the foundational studies
right,
will kind of provide that opportunity for people to use stakeholders and users from the various different schools that we have: School of Social
right.
Work, Lynch School, School of Nursing. They've all been participating in the courses. So I'm really excited about this whole thing that's happening right now.
Great.
Well, we have some really some questions over here in the interest of time. Let me move to Sebastian Cota, first-year student. I'm thrilled to know that the Schiller Institute will be established at Boston College and give us students the opportunity to integrate sciences within the context of liberal arts, which is exactly what I want to do. How will we be able to accomplish that? Will it be through discussions, research with professors, or will they be integrated courses? Laura, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I think all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yep.
We're looking forward to creating not just, so some will be courses, individual courses. For example, we're thinking about a course even for the spring in integrated science, where we will bring together a variety of different disciplines in science and just in one class, roll all those sciences into one and examine them from the perspectives of many different areas within the sciences. So that's, that's one thing we'll do pretty quickly, I think. But I think we're talking about individual courses. We're talking about potential curriculum that's built around themes. A theme might be global water crisis. A theme might be cybersecurity. A theme might be energy consumption and how to reduce that, and what that looks like in the world. I think you'll see within the building itself that you'll have a mixing of ideas and a mixing of students, and we'll be convening a lot of conversations. We'll be having brown bag lunches. We'll be having seminars. We'll be finding ways to bring together ideas that come from all the different corners of the university. Of course, probably most importantly is going to be the research area, or at least as important is the research area. So what we'll be doing is looking to try and create clusters of faculty and students who are interested in one of those themes or another theme that may emerge from our conversations. And then we'll facilitate those groups going ahead with research projects. In some cases, we'll be providing seed grants or relatively small grants for faculty who propose interdisciplinary, collaborative, convergent science projects or ideas. And we'll be seeding those ideas. And then as those ideas take off, we'll support that group of researchers as they go for recognition from the National Science Foundation or for other funding agencies, so that they can do work on an even larger basis. We're also going to look for partnerships with NGOs, non-governmental organizations. We're going to look for partnerships with government and industry. And we hope to spearhead many conversations with partners outside of the university, so that we can facilitate the connection that we can make for faculty and students with outside partners who can help us in these endeavors.
Yeah, actually, if I can add one more thing, Laura, to you. Sebastian, we have already seeded a lot of these activities that are through the various schools that BC has. The School of Social Work is doing, and Lynch School and the School of Nursing are doing a significant number of interdisciplinary courses where they're collaborating with each other, and they're part of the Innovation Through Design Thinking class. So there are already opportunities there. And what Laura is saying, that when we start collecting a repository of these experiences, that will lead to perhaps other opportunities for faculty members to participate. There's a question from Tokyo. Takehito Kamata from Sophia University in Tokyo asks a question. How do you create the collaborative learning environment to integrate innovative ideas and research methodology across academic disciplines, multidisciplinary, for discussing possible solutions on emerging societal issues? And then Mary, did you want to kind of take that in terms of the architecture and the design?
Well, I think the collaboration commons that we talked about is key. And I think that we've dedicated the amount of space in the building to accommodate that. I also think, not to repeat, but transparency that we've introduced is going to allow everyone to see what everyone else is doing. And when you look at truly cross disciplines or cross academic, if I could share just one more slide.
Sure.
Because I heard both Tom and Laura as well use the word hub. So you have my slide back up again?
We do.
We have the site plan. So I would just, to talk about the number of people that are going to be, passing through this building or probably through this building, not by this building. The building's kind of built into a little bit of a hill here. And we have three main connections to the building. There's that front main entrance, if you will, on the northwest corner that's on level 2. On level 1, so it's at a different level on the south end, there's an entrance. So you're going to get the people coming from the other sciences, if you will, from Merckert, etc., perhaps using the southern entrance. This entrance is going to pull everyone from middle campus in either direction. And then we also we have a connection to Higgins as well. So on level 3, Higgins Hall will connect to the integrated science building. So, and then there's these outdoor terraces that I mentioned. So just the numbers of people that are going to be passing through the building and the energy that will come from that and the cross-discipline and cross-academic nature of that, I think will be key. As I mentioned, there's nearly 600 seats of classroom seating. The occupancy of the building itself puts that at about 1,500 people. And that's without any guests coming, but 600 of those 1,500 are going to be changing with every course section. So the amount of flow through the building is going to be tremendous. And I didn't mention that there's a cafe on the first floor. So it's the kind of building that you're going to want to cut through versus go around. So I think the dedication of space to allowing the room for informal interactions and bumping up of disciplines will be very helpful.
The most collaboration, perhaps, the cafe.
Yes.
The cafe. Well, I think, there's two components to that question, and we've touched on both of those already. The key is the physical building. It is designed to foster collaboration across disciplines. There's a cafe, there are terraces, there's collaboration zones, there's write-up boards. The interior of the building is highly transparent. There's maker spaces. There's offices that will be dedicated to faculty that are coming in to collaborate. There are conference rooms that are transparent. This is one thing to think about. This building is it is always going to be in a dynamic flux, if you will. The types of research going on in there in 2021 and 2022 and the type of faculty and the projects and things that are happening is going to probably look very different in 2024 and 2028. So it is a dynamic flux type atmosphere. And the other thing, what Laura spoke to a moment ago, was we are going to be creating mechanisms, either internal funding mechanisms, to allow faculty to come together with students and to work on these ideas. So I think those two approaches will really allow us to foster the type of interdisciplinary work we want to do.
Well, thank you, Tom. There are many more questions, but we're running out of time. Alejandra, do you want to take over?
Yes, I
Can
want
I
to
just
thank the audience.
one thing, if I might? Sorry. To Tom's last point, those of you that are listening that might have thoughts about the best ways to engage faculty and students in these convenings, I would be very interested in receiving email from you about how we could do that, how we could best do that on this campus as I learn BC's how BC operates and what the culture here is. I think it'd be helpful if you could all give me a little bit of help on that.
So I want to thank our audience and our guests for joining us tonight, and thank you, Sunan, for co-hosting a lovely segment. A special thank you to our 3 guests today. Be sure to watch our next segment, First Year Experience and Freshman Welcome, taking place on August 7th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and featuring Mike Sacco, Executive Director, Office of First Year Experience and Center for Student Information, Ali Bain Hammond, Director, First Year Experience and Orientation, with host Grant Goslin, Director of Undergraduate Admission, and Quasi Sarkodie Mensah, Manager of Instructional Services at O'Neill Library. You need to register for each segment you want to attend. As you know, registration is very brief, but each segment has a different webinar link. So please check out our webpage at bc.edu/show@6 and see the next segments. While you're there, check out our archives where all of our previous segments are posted. Well, that's all we have for tonight, and I hope everyone enjoyed listening to the segment as much as we enjoyed hosting it. Be well and stay safe, and good night from Boston College.
And thank you for everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night, night.